everyone. This is Demetria and Christina with another episode of Hey Sister Holiday Edition. So you got to keep your fingers out of your camera line, sister. Can you handle that for me? I know you're trying to represent for your school, but at any
That
rate,
was a
so
little
my
hateration,
sister is
sorry.
here with me in Florida, and we are coming to you this evening instead of at our normal time on a Sunday afternoon because she'll be traveling back home. And we are excited about this nice topic of Hey Sister. So, hey, sister, what's going on with you?
Hi, sister. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yes, I
Um,
did. I did have to represent because my school is coming back. Southern University, the Southern University, and A&M College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is playing the Bayou Classic again against Grambling State University, and I had to take a moment to represent. So there it is, SU. Now I can remove my hat.
yes, now you can remove your hat.
Thank you.
So, thanks for representing for your HBCU. I
Absolutely.
represented for my HBCU as well last weekend during homecoming. But tonight we wanted to talk about a topic. There's an article that I read in the Wall Street Journal, and it talked about how women of color have high ambition but have little help. And so it really got me into thinking about those of us who have high ambition, high aspiration, but as we start to climb the ladder of success, oftentimes may not ascend to the heights that we all aspire to. And what type of support system is in place to help us get there? And one of the statistics that stood out was that in C-suite positions, there are very few women of color, and that's Black women, Latino women, Asian women. The number is actually, they only hold 3% of C-suite roles. And so we have plans in 2018 to bring on a couple of sisters. So if they're out there watching, Kimberly Wilson, I'm calling you out in particular because we talked about it already. The other two I won't call out just yet because I haven't approached them yet. But we're going to bring on some sisters who have risen to the C-suite level and bring them on to take this conversation to the next level so you can actually see what it looks like and what are some of the things that they had to do and overcome to get there. So, sister, tell me about
Yes.
your thoughts, your experience in the corporate environment, and what models did you see even on the executive level?
So, I mean, I think overall the issue is that oftentimes we get into rooms and in corporate America and we see at the a lot of diversity or more diversity, shall I say, at the entry level positions. And it seems that once you get to about that director position, that's when a lot of women of color seemingly hit a ceiling of some sorts. And so when it comes to rising above that director position into VP, into VP and above, basically, it becomes even more challenging, so to speak, for women of color to rise above those positions. And we see it often. And so one of the things that was pointed out, and I'm gonna take a moment to find it. Um, so again, it's you alluded to it, but it says when it comes. So let me back up. This was from an article that we had read, and it was in the Wall Street Journal. And so it says when it comes to corporate ambition, women of color are far more likely than white women to say they aspire to a top executive role, according to a new study from leanin.org and McKinsey and Company, which surveyed 70,000 women and men in North America. Yet Black, Latina, and Asian women still hold only 30% of C-suite roles compared with 16.7% of entry-level roles. So I think that speaks again to the fact that a lot of times my experience has been parallel with that sort of statistic where you see a lot of people of color typically in the entry-level positions, but when it gets to that director and above, it becomes much harder to break through that ceiling.
Yeah, as we were preparing for this conversation, I thought about my own experiences working, whether it was in the public sector or even in the private sector, in the pharmaceutical industry, and looking at the teams that I were a part of or that I observed within my organizations and where the diversity lies. Um, and it was very curious after I go back and reflect.
Mm-hmm.
Those leaders who were of leaders of color, so those who made it to the position of director or above, it seemed that their teams were more diverse, whether it was um, Latina, Black, women, there were more flavor, for lack of a better term, right? There was more flavor, generational differences, as as well as ethnic and gender differences represented in their teams. And even though some of those teams were in cities and major metropolitan areas where the sales team um, didn't really reflect the population at all. And so as I read this article and then thought back over my time, the question always comes like, why? Like, what is really holding us back? And so in this article, they talk about not receiving help. And,
Yes.
One of the questions I have for you in your own experience, do you feel that you received the help that you needed to move beyond a manager role?
I think that I have a wonderful fortune right now of being on a very diverse team. I have a great manager who I do believe is preparing me for whatever I want my next steps to be. That said, if I take my experiences in corporate America in totality, something that the article did allude to was basically about being transparent about that playbook. What it takes basically to get to those higher positions, because oftentimes women of color specifically miss out on those opportunities for mentorship that don't happen at work or in the
Or
workplace, or
organically in the workplace, right?
organically, exactly, in the workplace. And I can't speak for other people, but for myself, I just recently went to a conference that was geared to women of color and underrepresented men, to increase numbers in the technology sector. And in going to that conference, I asked one of the mentors there, like, how do you go about getting a mentor? How do you go about getting a coach? Because you're typically not asking someone who's at your peer level. You're typically asking someone who's above your peer level. And that's, to me, very challenging to do when they may not work with you directly. They don't know you from a can of paint. They don't know what your work product is. And so I'm just going to knock on a vice president's door or the CEO's door and say, hey, I would like you to mentor me. I think more often than not, they'll look at me like, no, or you're crazy, or that's not how it's done. But again, when we're not in those settings where you're out playing golf or you're at certain other places where maybe you would interact with some of those people in those higher levels, and you could foster the type of relationship that could lead to some sort of organic mentorship. We often just don't have those opportunities. So I would really, for myself, it would be nice, yeah, the transparency piece about just how you go about getting those mentors at those higher levels. Because I'll say this, I often feel like people of color have been taught very well how to work hard. I think we know very well how to work hard, and many a times we feel like that hard work will be enough to get us over the hump or to the next level. And unfortunately, it simply isn't. A lot of it is about relationships. And so I think that we all would probably benefit from more transparency again about how you get those relationships, how do you create those relationships and those opportunities for mentorship that allow you to grow.
Yeah. Well, one of the comments we had here from Ms. Laura Dorsey. So thanks for tuning in, Laura. And I know you have a lot of corporate work experience as well. And she says mentorship is really missing in the corporate workplace. And I think that one of the things that I learned from someone who I consider a mentor, and I introduced you to him as well, Mr. Sheldon. And so he doesn't look like either of us. He is, he's an older gentleman, but he believed in mentoring and developing people. And so he used to be the president of a company that I worked for. And one of the things I learned from him is, you know, it is not that conversation of, hey, do you want to be my mentor? That is not really a natural or organic type of conversation, but really identifying people that know something that you want to know, and then working with, you know, then reaching out to them about that. So, hey, you're really good at X. You know, I'd like to have lunch with you or breakfast with you to have a conversation about X. And you can just create your own community and niche of mentors without actually even bringing up that word mentor. But I also know, and I read this book once, and it talked about mentorship and mentors, coaches, and sponsors, right? So you know that I'm a professional coach. And so having a coach is critically important. And we're not often exposed to coaches to really even help us navigate some of the challenges that we experience we move up to different levels within an organization, and how to navigate and move in certain spaces. And then you have those who are mentors, those people who have been in or in a position that you are aspiring to, also having a sponsor. So in corporations, you know, when I read about that and heard someone present on that topic, it was just like, yes. So sponsorship for us as people of color, because there are fewer in the organization, right? Sponsorship is someone who is willing to put some political capital on the line for you, right? Someone who is willing to say, yes, I think this person is the right fit for that position. They may not have all of these pieces and parts, but this is what I've seen, and I'm going to stick my neck out and help them get to this near them or promote them or what have you. And we definitely have so few sponsors and are not even familiar with what a sponsor is versus a mentor. I think sometimes we get mentors, but someone who is willing to put their neck out on the line or expend some political capital in their organization to say, you know what, this person is ready to be a director, this person is ready to be a VP or an EVP, is even rarer. And if we're honest, so you talked about, you know, those honest, you know, if we're honest, you know, we all have implicit bias as human beings, right? And so there is affinity that we have towards certain people. Not that it's right or wrong, but I think that's also a large piece and part of why some of this stuff still persists in organizations, because it's not for a lack of education, because Black women are some of the most educated out there. You know, Black women have more master's degrees than most people as far as the demographic. You know, the data is out there, so you can Google that data if you want to know about it. So having the education, having the readiness, the capability, the capacity is definitely there. Like you said, we are taught to work hard.
Yes.
And so the work hard and the work ethic, that is not shortage either. So then what's happening? Where's the help? Where's the help for us? So we have another comment here, Ms. Katrina Lee Jones. It says, right, we believe that if I work hard, they will notice it. Yeah. But working hard is not enough. So it's about the politics. It's about organizational culture. It is, and this term just left my head, but, you know,
Well,
there
I
are
will say this, a term that my boss often uses is advocacy. So you said sponsorship. She uses advocacy. And I
okay.
think ultimately it does mean the same thing. But like you said, a mentor is often someone who will, can help you navigate certain things, but they may not necessarily be willing to put their political capital on the line to help you get to the next level.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is a function of the fact, to what you were saying earlier, is bosses typically hire people who look like them or who make them feel comfortable or who have things in them that resonate, because it's like, oh, you remind me of me when I was that age or what have you. We typically hire that way. We typically promote in that way, and we typically advocate in that way. And
Mhm.
yeah, and so if there's not a lot of us at those higher levels in the first place, it's even more challenging for those of us who are trying to get there to have the appropriate advocates and sponsors.
Okay. And so we have another comment here from Ms. Dawn Adderley. And Dawn is in a HR position with a major corporation. And she says, are we, Black women, taking advantage of the mentor programs within our organizations? The sponsor is another thing we should focus on within outside organizations. So she talks about the sponsor being another thing. Are we taking advantage of the opportunities? And one of the questions I would throw back at you, Dawn, is um, are we aware of all the opportunities that possibly are available? Um, you know, I there's this fine balance of, that taking initiative and then um, going back to the comment you made earlier, Christina, about we're so ingrained that if we do the work, they'll just notice, right? Like I'm doing so well, it'll automatically show how capable and ready I am. So, but yeah, I wonder, are we taking advantage of all the opportunities available to us? I'm not sure. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if we're taking advantage of all of them. I do think that for the most part, like you said, when we're aware of them, we do try to take advantage of them. But one of the things that was pointed out also in the article was a young lady who mentioned that, basically with her boss, he makes an attempt to attend conferences that are, say, geared to women, or either attend or send some sort of message ahead of time or what have you. And while I think it's very important for us to attend those conferences and those mentoring programs within our organizations, I do think we have to see it from a senior leadership perspective. Our senior leaders, particularly, as the article points out, white men in the highest levels of the organizations, have to show their support for these diversity programs, for these mentoring programs. It cannot be where you're going to, say, a mentoring conference or a Women's Day conference, or you're hearing all these great speakers, and you leave like, oh yeah, I feel really great. But we were preaching to the choir. We can't have that. You have to have your most senior leaders showing that they support these initiatives. And by supporting, yes, attending is the first step.
Mhm.
But diversity and inclusion and mentoring and promoting diverse candidates, helping women of color, people of color elevate to those senior levels or to the
Mhm.
C-suite. Those things have to ultimately, in my opinion, be tied back to compensation packages for our senior leaders, in order for them to really truly buy into it. Because I do think they believe in the importance of diversity. I do think that they believe in the importance of mentoring and having women leaders. I think they believe it, but in order to really further those goals and initiatives and those objectives, I think it has to be tied to their compensation. So, to
Mm.
answer Dawn's question, yes, I do think for the most part, if women of color are aware of the opportunities, they will take advantage of them. But they cannot be the only ones in the room taking advantage of them. They have to not only take advantage of them, but their senior leaders have to show that they actually support them, and something tangible is going to come out of that.
Yes, for sure. So we have a couple more comments I want to read and then come back, pick up on what you just said. So we have one comment from Rose. She says, yes, you need advocates in high places. These are the people who will put in a word for you for a promotion or a job. We had another comment here. Let me see if I can find this comment. Okay, here we go. This is another comment for Katrina. It said, I learned that I need to be able to articulate my achievements in that particular culture. So that is very important in terms of knowing the organizational culture and the language in that organization to adequately communicate your achievements and the value that you add and the value that you bring. Because sometimes if you're not able to articulate the value that you bring, then it goes unnoticed, right? And then let's see, we had one more comment, I thought. I'm having a hard time getting all these comments here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, we got a couple more comments. Here we go. Here's one from Aaron. It says, yes, we need advocates, but we also need to be confident enough to put ourselves out there and toot our own horns. You said it. We have the education and accolades. We work hard. Promote me. I'm qualified, and this is why. And yes, we do definitely have to toot our own horns. But, one of the things we're always told is that, about being modest, being humble. When someone says something, it's no big deal. That's just my job. We always diminish our value, and we need to stop doing that. We need to stop diminishing our value, period, and let people know that, yes, I'm here, I'm qualified, and this is why I'm the best and the baddest for this position. Because we are some bad chicks, I'm telling you. In my experience. I don't know, what's your experience?
No, I mean, we are. I look around my sister's circle, and I am often, fascinated by how fabulous the women that I know are. And they are, I mean, in addition, to being educated, having the education, having the talent, having the credentials, having the experience, in addition to all that, they come to the workplace after they've had to deal with teenage children and husbands and boyfriends and whatever. And they come to the workplace still fly, still wearing heels, still dressed up. I think that, I look around my sister's circle and I'm often just amazed. I have some very dynamic and amazing friends. So, I mean, but I have a friend who started an entire business about getting to the C-suite because that is what, because it's still a challenge. All of those things that if we were typically white men and had the very same credentials, we probably would have already hit some of these milestones. And I know people don't like to say that, and nobody wants to pick on white men. Trust me, I see all the time where diversity initiatives are painted as anti-white male initiatives, and that's not the case. I'm just saying, though, I have seen, to your point, we are some bad chicks, and I've seen some very bad chicks get overlooked, and it makes you wonder, well, if they were a white man with the exact same credentials, would that happen?
Yeah. Well, one of the things you said that was just a very important point about the men who are in those positions of leadership and power, and whether it's tied to their compensation or not. My former VP that I worked with and still have a relationship with today, there was this organization called the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, HBA. And he was a member of HBA, and he's still a member of HBA to this day. And he would go to the conference. So this is a conference where it's majority of women. And so that's somebody that's modeling what good looks like and really showing that commitment to that inclusion in the diversity piece, because he put himself in the position where he was the minority.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where he walked in the room and he was the only male in that room. And there were other women who were VPs and presidents and, entrepreneurs and what have you. And he was the minority in that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some value in that, right? For people to, what does good look like? And so I do agree with you. It's about modeling the behavior, because I think in terms of diversity and inclusion, we give so much lip service, but it's not what the lips do, it's what the actions do that is most important,
Right.
right? It's like, what are people doing to actually show that they believe in inclusion
Yes.
and that they are inclusive?
And that they believe that inclusion, again, happens at more than the entry level. Because I do remember, speaking of experiences, I remember having a former boss, having a conversation with a former boss and about the numbers. And that was his comment. It was like, hey, if you look at the numbers, we've been hiring more people of color, more minorities than white guys and da da da. And it was like, yeah, you're hiring them, but are you retaining them?
Mm-hmm.
Are you promoting them? Are they elevating again past that director level? So, to your point, the inclusion piece can't just be about, okay, just bringing them in. You have to be cultivating people. And this is across the board, just people. And my personal belief is that the best does not come in the exact same package.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you cultivate and you work to have workplaces that really truly consist of the best and the brightest and the most talented, they would be naturally diverse. And
Mm-hmm.
that would happen at the board of directors level, that would happen at the C-suite level, that would happen at the vice presidential level, and it would trickle all the way through the organization, because the best simply does not come in the exact same package.
I love that. So naturally diverse. Oh no, let me change how I put that. So it'll be, I typed that wrong. Naturally diverse when you hire the best. Absolutely. I love that, because the best doesn't just come in one package.
Right.
And we got a comment there, says you hit it, Chris, from Dawn, and we appreciate that. So we have 2 minutes left before we sign off for tonight. Any closing comments you want to add? So in the this live video, we put the link up for the Wall Street Journal article. So we encourage you to go there and read it, comment on it, share this video with your friends so that they can comment on it. And really, the purpose of us doing this program and even doing this podcast, yes, these are conversations we have all the time, but we want to start the dialogue. We want to have some real honest dialogue about these tough topics. Some of them fun, some of them funny, but some of them are challenges. And I know that if we approach them with honesty, that we can overcome many of these challenges. What do you have to say in closing, Christina?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. We naturally talk and we're naturally inquisitive. And, I didn't tell you this. I recently, because of that conference I went to, I did my Strength Finders again.
Oh,
yes. But this time I realized, the first time I did it, I was like, I didn't care for the experience. I just didn't feel like I got anything out of it. This time I felt like I got so much out of it, because of the way that it was presented and the way that it was explain. But so one of the things that came up is that, yeah, I have this intellectual was one of my strengths, but futuristic was my highest strength. But interestingly, context was also one of my strengths. And I just say all that to say futuristic is about looking forward. Context is about understanding the context and the historical patterns that got you to the place that you are at. And intellection is about engaging in intellectually stimulating conversations. So I say all that to say I do believe that we solve our problems, our existing problems, and we make the future better by really having honest dialogue about the past and talking about things that are happening in our
All
current.
right. So if we have some honest conversations about our past, we will certainly have a bright future. So with that being said, we're signing off for tonight. We won't be coming at you tomorrow, but look for us in 2 weeks. Please share this page with your friends. Tell them about the conversations that we're having on Hey Sister. And if you want to be a guest, let us know. We have our calendar that we're working on for 2018 and some topics that we definitely want to address. Obviously, we're going to stay relevant and hit hot topics as they occur. But let us know if you have something you want to say and you want to share and you want to join the conversation. Let us know and share this page. Hey, sister. And we are signing off. Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
go Southern. Woo-hoo.